Hello and welcome to another edition of Lab Matters, a webcast from Kaspersky Lab. My guest today is Mr. Ștefan Tănase from our Romanian office. He is a senior security researcher here at Kaspersky Lab. And Ștefan, I want to talk to you a little bit about the issue of, the risk posed by the WikiLeaks information disclosure. That affected governments and, Cablegate at that very, very high level. But on the consumer level, there's this big, there's like a storm brewing of information that can be stolen, and there can be this notion of WikiLeaks, not necessarily WikiLeaks, but data leakage causing major damage in general on a consumer level. Talk a little bit about what you've been researching around malware doing that sort of information reconnaissance, information stealing at the consumer level.
Basically, the problem is that everybody's talking about WikiLeaks right now, but we're not actually seeing a bigger problem, which is data leakage, which is happening on personal computers, on a average internet users level, because everybody's talking about WikiLeaks because, of course, the stakes are much higher. We're talking about national security, right, things affecting the global economy.
Right. It's on the front page of the New York Times.
Of course, of course. If average Joe loses his emails, it's not going to make it on the front page of New York Times. But for the average Joe, losing his emails,
right, it's a big deal.
It's quite a big deal, right? And the lesson that we have to learn here is that stakes are always relative. So if the emails belonging to average Joe are totally not important for, the national security, right, they are very important for Joe.
Right.
And Joe doesn't need to lose his emails. And unfortunately, there's quite a huge amount of malware out there right now that has exactly this functionality of stealing Joe's emails and making
right,
them public for the cyber criminals controlling them, or stealing Joe's passwords or account numbers, etc.
Are we seeing this type of activity where not necessarily just bank account information or financial related data being stolen, but just regular data being uploaded to remote servers controlled by cyber criminals? What can you tell me about some of your research around this kind of information stealing malware?
Well, the bad part of the story is that we're seeing this happening more and more. We're seeing cyber criminals which were owning botnets previously, but were only using them for classical botnet operations like sending spam or launching DDoS attacks. We're seeing them shifting towards actually starting to browse those infected computers and see what kind of information right, is available in there. Because cyber criminals right now, they're actually sitting on a huge gold mine of information, and they're not exploiting it. And I think that what WikiLeaks is bringing to this whole picture is the fact that information leaks can get to the front page of,
right,
of newspapers. And that's what I think is the motivation that cyber criminals were waiting for, what to do with that information.
When you say they're sitting on a gold mine, explain that to the average end user who doesn't quite understand what kind of damage, what level of ownership a piece of malware has on that machine. Explain this gold mine.
Well, it's a very simple formula. If your machine is infected, then you've lost control over your machine. Right. Probably you can still use it to work with it, right? You can still use it to browse the internet, but you cannot trust that machine. That machine cannot be trusted the moment it is infected. Even though, let's say, a machine gets infected with a piece of malware that is not specifically designed to steal information, that piece of malware will in most of the cases will have some sort of update itself functionality.
Right. So some sort of persistence on that machine.
Exactly.
With
so
the ability
at any time, that simple piece of malware can turn into a spying Trojan or into a password stealing Trojan, right, etc. So.
Have we seen examples of this type of information stealing beyond credit card numbers in some of the places we're finding tranches of data that's already been uploaded?
Probably credit card numbers and logins for online banking accounts are the most, let's say, the most obvious to monetize in terms of, getting right, some revenue out of those infections, because that's what's motivating cybercrime at the right, moment, which is money, getting money out of the infected computer. So that's the most direct method.
Going forward, how do you see this additional bits of information being monetized? I mean, what is kind of your prediction around where this personal WikiLeaks?
Well, what I'm seeing is that cyber criminals will soon realize how valuable information can be. So it's not a question of how valuable the amount of money that you can steal from that guy's account can be.
Right.
But let's say, let's look through his emails, let's look through his photos. Maybe we can ask for some ransom, maybe we can do things at a whole new level, because they have control over those machines. They just haven't used them yet to their full potential.
What should the consumer do? What is the number one tip you have for consumers to not only defend themselves, but just understand how, once their machine is owned by a piece of malware, what some of the risks are?
I think that consumers need to understand the consequences of using an unsecure computer. It can either be a public computer or it can be their own personal computer which is infected. Because the sad reality is that most of the users out there right now, they don't really understand the potential consequences of using an infected computer. It's like every day I hear people telling me, yeah, my computer is infected, but that's all right. I can still browse the internet. I can still talk to my friends. Yeah, you can probably still browse the internet and talk to your friends, but you'll never know who exactly is watching your every click, your every move, and everything that's happening on your screen. And
so the number one thing is to make sure your machine is clean.
Of course, to make sure your machine is clean, and actually to make sure that the machine you're using can be trusted, because in many circumstances you can find yourself traveling, you have to use somebody else's machine or a public machine.
Right.
Don't do it.
Exactly.
If you care about your emails.
Is this bit of advice also applicable to all other forms of malware out there, where end users should be on top of operating system patches, browser patches, making sure the machine is fully secure, making sure you run antivirus software, make sure your security posture is strong.
Definitely,
and the same thing applies here.
Things should not only limit these advices should not only limit themselves to the place where you store the information, because you can store the information in the most secure place in the world, but when you're trying to access it, you're opening a channel to that information. And that transportation channel should also be as secure as the storage place.
It applies to your password, or something as simple as your password. All right, very, very valuable information. Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you for watching another edition of Lab Matters, a webcast from Kaspersky Lab. You can see some more editions of this webcast on youtube.com/securelist. Thank you.